I don't know how many of you realize this, or even want to acknowledge it, but being a YouTuber isn't as easy as it looks. This platform will quite literally make a content creator jump through hoops just to have their voice heard. For me, it's hours upon hours of watching movies or shows, and then there's even more hours of preparation, recording, editing, and uploading. And all of those sacrifices could be for nothing because we are all at the mercy of some phantom algorithm. That's why most of us play the YouTube game. Our very survival on this platform depends on it. You see, we have to have certain keywords in our titles, and we have to do our thumbnails in a certain kind of way. Because if we just titled our videos, insert the name of the movie here, review, nobody would give a shit.
It's true.
Believe me, I've done it, and unless you have a built-in, already established audience, it does not work. But you know what? I'm willing to do what I have to do, even though there are forces working against me. Because ultimately, I love talking about movies, and that's why I started this channel in the first place. And you should be able to recognize that based on what I say in my videos, and not what my video is titled. I very much respect the filmmaking process, and I want what's best for this art form. That's why I'm so critical. It's because I care. Unfortunately, we currently find ourselves in an era of film discussion where people have either become afraid or unwilling to be critical. And we even have a situation now where one of the biggest movie review YouTubers is refusing to be critical and simultaneously saying things that are inadvertently throwing people who are still critical further under the bus. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to start this off by saying I rarely watch other movie reviewers on YouTube for a couple of reasons. For one, I don't want my opinions to be influenced by anyone else's analysis. And two, I got to a point in my life where I could no longer trust the people that I used to watch. Yet another reason why I chose to start my own channel and do it myself. But obviously I'm aware of who Chris Stuckman is, and yes, I've seen his videos. Now, I was never really a big Chris Stuckman fan to begin with, just to be clear. But after his Madame Web video, I think it's safe to say that I never will be. Now, before I get into all this, I first want to point out that I do understand what he was trying to say. And I understand that in his mind, he was going into this and saying these things with the best intentions. For me, he just went about doing it in the wrong way. Now, I know some of you are saying, who am I to question such a successful YouTuber?
Anybody care about what I want?
I do.
Shut up. Get out.
And I think that's fair to say, but I want you all to take this into consideration. He's big enough to where his words do carry some weight. And I believe that what he said will trickle down and negatively impact smaller up-and-coming channels, and that I cannot overlook. So Chris Stuckman did a video called I Have to Talk About This, and if you didn't know any better, you would think you would be clicking on a Madame Web review, considering that is how he built his platform. But unfortunately, that's not what happens, because he starts off the video by saying he tries to keep things on his channel about film celebration, and how the video you just clicked on is not a movie review. He continues, I am not about bashing filmmakers, artists, and that he knows how hard it is to make a movie, but that he does not know how hard it is to make a movie under the studio system. He says he was able to make an indie film without a giant corporation breathing down his neck, which is not a privilege that S.J. Clarkson had when she directed Madame Web under Sony, which he can imagine was monumentally difficult. He continues, this is not a video about Madame Web or whether or not you should go and see Madame Web. He says there are plenty of people on this platform, as well as a website dedicated to aggregating reviews, giving it a number, that's going to inform you of that, and you can choose to listen to that if you want. That information is out there. He goes on to explain that this video is about how the studio system is most likely to blame for putting these filmmakers in difficult situations. Now, obviously there is a lot to unpack here, but I want to start off by saying this. What Chris Stuckman chooses to do with his platform that he built is his business. I don't have an issue with him personally feeling obligated to be more positive simply because he understands what it takes to make a movie.
That makes sense.
The issue for me is the idea that we shouldn't be critical of films because of how hard people work on them. To me, this sets a bad precedence if in fact you love film as much as you say you do. Because he already has many people on social media co-signing everything he said and proclaiming that this is the professional way to go about talking about movies. And how the way everyone else chooses to go about it is both toxic and overly negative. The seeds were already planted for this. Chris Stuckman just basically poured fertilizer all over it. I want to point out that I myself review movies, but I also make videos about situations going on around movies. And I make those types of videos distinctively different from each other on purpose. I believe that telling everyone how shitty movie studios can be is necessary. I do it all the time with studios like Disney and WB. I've made many videos about studios meddling in the creative process. So this is a real problem, and it is something that needs to be addressed.
Damn right, that's the only way I work, Cap.
But here's the thing, when it comes time to watch and criticize the final product, none of that matters. As a film critic, your job is to be critical of the final product, not give it the benefit of the doubt based on the circumstances that it was created under. A bad film is a bad film, and you're doing absolutely nobody any favors by trying to sugarcoat your reaction to it. If we don't speak up about bad films, all that's really going to do is breed more bad films. Because then the studios think they can get away with the very same shit that Chris Stuckman is trying to bring to light. You have to hold them accountable for creating a bad product, and that involves critiquing that product. I don't know where people got it in their heads that if you review a film and you are tough on that film in your analysis, that is somehow a personal attack on the artists involved. We all know that there are many factors that go into making a movie, and the blame can rarely be placed on one person.
I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes.
But truth be told, saying nothing isn't doing anyone involved any favors either. If I were to make an independent movie someday in the way that Chris Stuckman has, I would expect people to keep the same energy with my film that I do every single time I review a movie. It's part of the job when you create something, attach your name to it, and put it out for the public to consume. People are entitled to give their opinions about it, and you shouldn't take their opinions personally. Here's a question. How many times have we seen some of our greatest living directors critique other people's films? I know for a fact that I've seen people like Quentin Tarantino and John Carpenter do just that. They do not hesitate to share their opinions because they understand that's what comes with the territory. And I would argue they love film just as much, if not more, than the next person.
Besides that, it's all in the reflexes.
The problem with modern film discussion and criticism is that people confuse criticism with hate and negativity. I celebrate films that deserve to be celebrated, because I do understand how hard it is to make a great film, and that's why it's all the more impressive when somebody does it. For a movie reviewer to say he's not going to review a film because he doesn't want to be harsh to the filmmakers, that basically tells us two things. For one, you are wasting your audience's time, who rely on you and trust your opinion. And also it all but confirms that you know that the film is terrible, you are just choosing not to talk about it. Which pretty much defeats the purpose of you saying all of this in the first place. You would have been better off just not saying anything at all in that situation and not even making this video. My biggest issue with what he said in this video involves what he said towards the end of his intro, where he talks about how there are a lot of people on YouTube and sites like Rotten Tomatoes that will tell you whether or not you should see a movie if that's what you're looking for. Basically lumping people like myself into the same category with a garbage tier website like Rotten Tomatoes.
Me, right?
Chris might not realize this, and this may not have been his intention, but to me, this came off as him indirectly putting down anyone who still chooses to be critical, which is pretty hypocritical when you consider how he built his platform. He basically gave ammunition to all the internet trolls who can't hear a difference of opinion and can't process criticism. Because now he's looked at as the guy who does things professionally. He's the good guy because he doesn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. And the rest of us are evil, toxic clickbaiters and rage farmers. I'm sorry, but this whole thing stinks of being disingenuous. All this is really doing is making things harder for people who already have a hard time making a name for themselves on this platform. It's bad enough that most of us have people in our comments every day trying to discredit us. But now we have a major YouTuber adding fuel to the fire because he now sits atop his moral high horse. Or maybe he just doesn't want to piss off Hollywood because he wants to be a part of the club.
Because it's all part of the plan.
Well, for me personally, I don't give a about being part of the club. What I want is better movies, and the only way we're going to get better movies is to call out garbage when we see it. Now, is the studio to blame for that a lot of times? Absolutely. But a bad product is a bad product, and if you consider yourself to be a movie reviewer on YouTube, you have an obligation to your audience to be honest. And to me, Chris Stuckman is not being 100% honest with his audience by approaching things in this way. He's basically deflecting and making excuses instead of doing the one thing that made people subscribe to him in the first place.
Y'all be cool. Right on.